Hey, it's Brock here with Rock Hill Farms, and today I want to talk a little bit about safely towing and hauling, and I specifically want to give a long-term review on my WaySafe hitches. Now, if you guys follow the channel, you know that I don't have a diesel truck because I like the way it looks or I like the way it sounds. I have an HD truck because I do HD towing. And that's not to say like I'm a hot shot or anything like that, but I consistently tow between 10,000 and 15,000 pounds. And if you're doing that, you have got to make sure you're doing it safely, because it only takes one thing to go wrong for you to have a dangerous, expensive, and potentially life-altering accident. And I've had a few close calls that were major learning experiences for me. And one of those was a dump trailer that had the weight too far to the back, and when I hit 50 miles an hour, it just started going crazy and almost threw me off the road. I could barely get stopped. I didn't know enough or have the experience to know that I could squeeze the independent brake controller and put some drag on it. But regardless of that, the takeaway for me is I learned that day you have to balance your load properly or you're going to have nothing but problems. And that's when I got my WaySafe hitches. I've got a bumper pull WaySafe hitch and I've got one for the gooseneck. And what those do is tell you how much tongue weight you have. Now, why is that so valuable? Well, first of all, your tongue weight, whether people want to argue this or not, is part of your payload. So you need to know how much payload and how much weight you're putting onto the truck. But more importantly, you can use that pin weight to know a lot more about your load. So if you have a load that you know what it weighs, so I know what my skid loader weighs. Because I know what my trailer weighs, I know what my skid loader weighs, I know exactly how much pin weight I can have, or how much I should have. So if I load that skid loader and the number on the gauge is not what it's supposed to be, then I know I've got a problem and I need to recenter. Sometimes with something as heavy as a skid loader on that type of trailer, moving forward 8 inches can add 400 pounds or subtract 400 pounds of pin weight. And that's a big deal. The second thing it can do for you is tell you what your load weighs. Now, you might, at first, the reaction I get to that is, no, that doesn't make any sense. You have to know one of two things. You either have to know you're centered or you have to know how much your load weighs. But with a dump trailer, I can see centered with like loose dirt, rocks, any kind of material like that. I can see when that load is centered in the trailer. I have experience of what centered in the trailer looks like in regards to the WaySafe. And at that point, I know that when I get 5 tons of rock, this is what my gauge reads. So now I'm scooping up wet clay, and I don't know how much a scoop of wet clay weighs, but I don't want to overload my dump trailer, because if I overload the dump trailer, it won't dump, besides being hard on the truck and potentially dangerous down the road. So if I'm loading that clay, I can get out when I think I'm getting close, read my gauge, and know exactly how much weight I have in there. Pretty valuable information. So now I just gave you the speech on why I think the WaySafe hitches are great. I've said all this before. What's the point of the video? Well, the point is my WaySafe gauge just quit working. And I've had this a long time, and I actually made a video when I got it, so I can look up and see how long I've had this. And it's been perfect. They've both been perfect, but the gooseneck has quit reading. And that's the #1 concern or complaint that people have. They'll say, yeah, that's great until the gauge quits working or the gauges can leak. So what I need to know is how big of a problem is that first? How hard is it to replace? Is it going to cost me anything? Basically, does the company stand behind the product? And that's what we're finding out today. So when the gauge quit working, that did not stop me from being able to use the hitch. It functions perfectly fine whether you have a reading on the gauge or not. And even if you don't care about the numbers, it's a high quality trailer hitch. But I want that number on there. So I called WaySafe. I said, hey, my gauge has quit working. What do I need to do? And they just sent me another one. Now, their warranty is lifetime on the gauge, because essentially the company knows that if you're like me, I consistently haul at max load of what this is rated for, and I'm on country roads and it's bouncing, and no gauge is going to last forever. So they give you a lifetime warranty. Now how does that lifetime warranty work? I'm gonna try to say this right, but basically, at any time, they'll send you a replacement gauge and you can fix it yourself, which is what we're gonna do today. Within a year, they will pay for the shipping for you to send your gauge back, and they will fix it for you and send it back. Shipping is on them. After a year, you pay shipping, but they will fix it for you. To me, it was more hassle to ship it to them than to just fix it myself, I think. So let's get this gauge out of the truck, see how hard it is to fix. Nothing looks like it's wrong with this. It looks fine. But all that happened, you know, the gauge isn't busted, nothing's been damaged. I'm gonna say there's a seal in here that it got too much pressure, too much vibration, lost the fluid out of the gauge. I'm no expert on this kind of stuff. That's just my thought on it. So, let's go up and see how hard this is to replace. All right, so I opened up the box here. We have our instructions. And then we have a cleaning rag, a gauge, an O-ring, and some oil. Use a 3/16 hex wrench to unscrew the hydraulic fluid plug from the back of the insert and drain all the hydraulic fluid through the port. Wear gloves if desired. I do not desire. That did not immediately pop loose, so we're going to hit it with a little bit of PB Blaster. Even after that PB Blaster, I would call this good and tight. So, not required by any means, but for mine, which is pretty old and dusty and been through the paces, I'd recommend using the Allen socket. You get better torque on it. They usually are a good hardened material too, whereas an Allen wrench, there's a lot of variation in quality. If you've spent a lot of time using hex keys, you know what I'm talking about. Now it says drain the oil. Better get something to put it in. It's going to be a tiny amount. This old screw bucket. I'd be surprised if there's any oil in it. I would say it failed because it lost all the oil. Yeah, there's no hydraulic oil left in it. Slide a 14mm wrench into the slot on the bottom of the gooseneck insert and unscrew the tongue weight gauge, figure 2. So there's a slot right there, or this is going to unscrew like any other gauge. I'm going to go find a 14mm. Just glad it wasn't a 10mm. You know what? I think I'm going to blow the air off of this before unscrewing this. The back's fairly clean. This is all dirty. No reason to open that gauge up with all that grime on there. Couple things I want to mention while I'm doing this. Number one, most of you probably already know, but if you don't, I'm an affiliate for WaySafe. So if you want one of their products, I've got a discount code that'll save you some money. I'll put that discount code in the description of the video and the pinned comment. Second thing is, WaySafe came out with a new product, or one that I didn't know they had. It's a different type of a trailer hitch. And I immediately, I want to show this in a video, I want to talk about it, I want to see it in person, but I don't need one. So they sent it to me, and in the next week, I'm going to have a video demonstrating that product, and then I'm going to give it away to someone who's watching. Because I figure, as a creator, I get demonstration products all the time. I'd rather have this benefit somebody else. Use a 3/16 hex wrench to unscrew the 4 set screws. There are 4 set screws that hold the ball in. This one at least was not as tight as the one on the hydraulic reservoir. Now, I was actually telling you something wrong earlier. On my bumper pull WaySafe hitch, I'm at the limit of what it's rated for. And I think they might have a heavier duty version, but I'm at the limit on my bumper pull. On this one, you can put 7,500 pounds on it. So I'm nowhere near the limit of what this thing can hold. Okay, so those set screws go way up in there, so you do almost have to remove them. I think right here is the seal that probably causes the failure. That's a little rubber gasket right there. O-ring. Remove the old O-ring from the toe ball. Might need a little screwdriver or something to get that out. Yep, all I needed was a little screwdriver. All I had was a giant one, so I guess it'll have to work. Use the provided microfiber rag to clean all ports of the hydraulic system and any other parts of the gooseneck insert. Set that over there on the paper. I can see where you definitely want that part clean. Now I have a feeling, I don't know, but I think you wouldn't have to replace this at all, this gauge. I think the gauge is probably fine because it's not cracked or broken. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the new gauge in, but I'm gonna hang on to this one in case I ever, you know, slap a chain up against this and break the gauge. I think probably the only problem was this, because we didn't have any fluid left in it. Okay, now we open up our bag here. We're going to put the new O-ring on. It says put just a little bit of oil onto the O-ring. That little bit of oil is all it takes. So we're just going to put a couple drops of oil on this. See if we can get it onto the hitch first. Okay. Now, I've cleaned this, wiped my hands before putting it all together, and then just put a little bit of oil on here. So obviously it's critically important that your set screws hit this spot. If you lock your set screws down on this spot or this spot somehow, that could be a very dangerous situation because the amount of force on a gooseneck ball, it could actually slide out of there over time. So I'm going to run the screws in until this won't move anymore outside of that much, and I'll know that I'm in that groove. Okay, so we're definitely in the right spot. Now I'll run them all down finger tight before I start actually tightening any of them. Okay, then we're just going to take our gauge like any other gauge and screw it into the front here. You're going to turn it till it starts to get tight, and then stop with the gauge pointed in a direction where you can actually read it. Now this threads on this already have thread tape on them, so you don't have to worry about doing that. It says as you tighten that down, don't go past and then back to where you want it, because that can create a leak potentially. So you want to continuously turn till you have it where you want it and stop. Now it says to put compressed air onto this back port right here. Just stick your air nozzle in there and kind of make a seal with the rubber end on your air nozzle and blow hard on it, and it's going to kind of set this into the ideal starting position for the measurement. Okay, then we're just going to fill the reservoir with this oil completely. Oh wow, so I thought it would take all of it, but it takes very little oil to fill it. And it basically says tap on the side of this to make sure there's no air bubbles. Oh, just saw an air bubble. I thought, well, that seems silly. Did we need to do that? But I actually did. Okay. I would say that's as completely full gets. The plug for the back of it has the tape pre-installed. Alright, and we're back in business. Because I know what all my stuff weighs and what this gauge should read when I park in a certain place, next time I use the trailer, I will verify that I'm still getting an accurate number. Let's see if I can put 1,500 pounds of pressure on it. Oh, nope, I can't move that gauge. So, next time I tow with this, I'll verify that it's accurate. And then just in case, if something was to go wrong, I'll put a big disclaimer in the notes of this video. If for some reason this didn't work, I'll be sure to let you guys know. But for now, if you're interested in a weigh-safe gauge, I think the idea that, oh, the gauges fail, like, it's not that big a deal. And I was very slow and methodical about this, but you just screw this out, you screw this out, you put the fluid in and a seal, pretty quick and easy. So I would not say that what if the gauge fails is any really relevant factor at all on buying this product. Because if the gauge fails, if the seal fails, it's still a good ball, it's still a good hitch, and it's not hard to fix. You can fix it for free. So that's my thoughts on it. Highly recommend it. Check out the description and the pinned comment for a link to get a discount on the product. I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.